Hi friends, this is Yoga Light. Today we are looking at the fivefold division of the prana into sub-pranas. The one energy is divided into 5 special energies. In yoga these are important in different contexts, but they are often the key to understanding the locks, the bandhas, used in breathing practices. They are also used to generate heat for purification. Though they are associated with the chakras, the elements, colors, and shapes, I usually find these long lists of associations are not helpful. The energy is one, and we can refer to the universal energy, but here we use it to mean the energy that circulates throughout our body. It is divided into 5 pranas, energies or winds that have special functions on different layers of the subtle anatomy. These can form a bridge between experiences and functions within the body. The 5 sub-energies each have their own characteristics, such as how they move, where they are located, and what they control or regulate in the mind-body system. However, there are varying ideas about where the energies are centered and their characteristic range and direction. And more importantly, the movements of the pranas can be changed by directing the energy. The apana moves downward and controls the exhalation. This energy operates the elimination processes in the body. Its region is from the navel to the base of the spine. The vyana circulates throughout the body and forms the aura. It controls the processes of circulation, blood, lymph, nerves, and coordination. The samana is from the base of the spine to the navel and controls digestion. Some say it moves sideways and others say it moves in a spiral at the navel region. The prana controls respiration. It moves inward and spans from the heart to the navel. The udana is in the throat and controls maturation and balance. It moves upward and expands. You can trigger this energy by doing tree pose, for instance, observing its effect and experiencing a peaceful quiet. One important idea is the digestive order. Prana, we take in the energy. Apana eliminates what is not useful, and samana digests it. What is digested is then circulated by the vyana, and what is most useful is extracted as nutrition by the udana. This is misleading to some extent since these blend together. There are 2 kinds of practices that use this description. The first one seeks to increase the flow of energy or purify it through uniting the prana and apana at the navel to increase samana. The apana is directed upwards and the prana downward. The result is heat, potentially very extreme heat, at the navel. This purifies the nadi system and is related to awakening the kundalini. These kinds of practices work with the energy itself via intention. Breathing is usually added, and usually some form of body movement. These are best learned from someone who has accomplished it and within a greater context of what to do with the experiences of success and where it leads. Other causal energies can also bring about heat or tapas. The second main practice involves the locks, the bandhas of the breathing practices. There are 3 main locks, the root lock, the navel lock, and the chin lock. The root lock, squeezing the anus closed, will stimulate the apana and direct it upwards. The navel lock, where we pull the navel area in and up, will stimulate the samana. The chin lock stimulates the udana and the prana at the heart and directs them upwards. In many systems, it is sent to the third eye. When coupled with the root lock, it draws down energy from above the head to the third eye, and some systems will direct it from the third eye up to the crown. We don't need to pay too much attention to the movements of the sub-pranas, as a given technique will specify where to direct the energy if needed. Sometimes the physical action will direct the energy mechanically without the need of the mind. At other times we want to let the energy move naturally without the interference of the mind. The general idea is that you are directing the prana upwards. When we come to the inner being, this can be described as lifting the consciousness to merge with the higher consciousness above the head. The simple guide is that we direct the energy towards higher awareness. So we have several things going on. One is the action of the locks with systematic breathing in order to direct the energy, opening and purifying the nadi system. The second, the one we want to look at today, is its action in strengthening and coordinating the subpranas. The subpranas work on different levels of the subtle body. We can look to the physically corresponding systems, such as the digestive tract, but this is better understood in terms of modern anatomy. So we will not look at medical ideas or diagnostics using the imbalances of the subpranas. What is helpful, though, is looking at these systems and their effect on the mind. By strengthening the subpranas, we are able to also make use of these energies in terms of our experiences of the world and how we deal with them. Experiences can be treated like food. When something happens to us, we must go through the same processes for the mind. We have to take in the experience, separate out what is not needed, process it, absorb it, and see what place it should have as we compare it to other experiences, and then we see the wisdom of it. The central idea is that by doing the locks, we strengthen these energies and can handle experiences more effectively. This improves our ability to handle stress, but more importantly, our poise of equality and equanimity. We will be able to preserve our level of awareness and insight while being active in the world. It is easy to be quiet while sitting in meditation, but we want the same quiet receptivity while dealing with situations at work. If the prana is weak, we will not be able to take in new ideas. This is often blocked by fear, which affects the lungs. If the samana is weak, we will not be able to digest what has happened. We will not process it. If the apana is weak, we will not finish tasks. If the vyana is weak, there will not be a creative use of the experience and we will fail to make connections. This impairs wisdom. If the udana is weak, we will be unable to appreciate or see the value in the experience. The usefulness of this is not in creating a new typological psychology through which to evaluate people, but rather to become in touch with these processes. These energies or their effects can be observed, and by focusing on them, we can aid our practice. The actions of the subpranas occur within our conditioned system, circumstances, and according to our level of development. We will not be able to overcome serious trauma by strengthening the pelvic floor, but we can notice how these processes and energies operate, and we can sense the energies directly. One key area is reason versus judgment. With reason, we evaluate things in terms of what we know and decide based on our knowledge. Or we don't feel confident with our conclusions because we lack understanding or just don't have enough information. A judgmental person will judge something as good or bad and then argue for their conclusion. Judgment is often about being right because it threatens the identity to be wrong or threatens one's control over the situation. This is different from seeking knowledge via reason in order to evaluate something. Each individual has their conditioning, upbringing, personal history, and circumstances, all of which contribute. So, for instance, if you grew up in a strong fundamentalist household, there may be certain ideas or viewpoints that you refuse to look at, blocking the action of the prana. This isn't a weakness of the prana, but a matter of their conditioning. It can also be their personal level of evolution, which influences their ability to touch deeper ideas. We will deal with this more when we get to the 10 forms of consciousness. The 5 energies work within our personal confines. The main goal is to familiarize yourself with the process so you can observe where you are in it. The circumstances are internal and external. Someone can be perfectly reasonable until a lack of sleep stresses them. The lack of sleep causes a disruption to the energy behind our thoughts and emotions. In oneself, if you are going to throw out a thought or reject a movement of the mind, then the apana energy is behind it. If you want to understand something, being open to listening is the key. You need the action of the prana. When you get distracted and caught up in things, it is good to have a strong udana to be able to see what is important or not important and direct the mind accordingly. Working through something is processing things. This is fundamental and needs, as the saying goes, a strong stomach when things are difficult. For the apana, this is the completion of tasks. If your apana is weak, you will fail to put away your tools. When you are overwhelmed with too many things to do, the vyana allows you to start one. Once you start even something trivial, you will tend to keep going to other tasks. Think of having to write down your to-do list because you have too many things in your head. By writing it down, you were able to process, see the connections to other tasks, and eliminate the clutter in your head. The vyana starts the process as you are able to let them all come together into a list. In effect, it doesn't get things done, it gets things moving. The udana allows you to make decisions. By paying attention, you can see this in others and, more importantly, in oneself. Our reactions are due to conditioning, yes, but also due to our personal level of development. Individual natures will also have different strengths and weaknesses of the prana. The key is to see the changes caused by the practice and to correct for conditioning. People have an individual capacity range, but many things like confidence or decision-making can be improved through training. Eventually, you can sense these things energetically, particularly with the prana. You can sense whether someone is open to what is being said or what is going on. There can be a hardness or resistance as you sense someone else's energy if the prana is weak. You can also feel energy gaps with the vyana or even a void for a weak udana. These will happen in a context where you are active in the situation with the person. I will give a few examples. I have met many people who took college classes covering a particular topic who remember nothing of it. They remember having to do a lot of work, reading, and being tested on the material, but they don't actually gain much from it because there was no time to process it, not time to think it through. There are also instances where you can regurgitate material, but it has no impact, no consequences or weight. The lesson I learned from this was to ensure I always had adequate sleep. So when I would go to do yoga workshops, I didn't take red-eye flights, or flights that were too early or late. I would give myself enough time to adjust to time zone changes. I noticed that I tended to be the one who remembered what was taught and was able to internalize the teachings, while others who went with me often didn't because they didn't have a sense of measure as to what they could handle. They had to make an effort to travel, and it limited what they could take in and utilize. I saw this with people who weren't constrained by time and money. They just had a habit of drama or rushing or having it have to be a big effort to get there. They often didn't give themselves the time to digest the experience of the workshop. They were often happy to have saved money from taking a cheaper flight with bad timing. Many people have this habit from vacations and make it an escape. But if you have an eye to examine how you experience and process those experiences, it can allow you to adjust. Notice some people take vacations that are about activities that reset your system and get you out of your routine. The idea is to make it an experience. Others take vacations that are retreats. They get away for a while to nature or to just be in a place and think about things. They process and reassess. Sometimes meditation is a fast from the senses. Sometimes it is more about letting things settle. When you can control the energy, meditation can be more about insight or going deeper, entering more subtle awareness. The action of the subpranas can appear in dreams. Often dreams are a window into psychological processes, such as being in an apartment with unopened boxes or other tenants' stuff left in your apartment. Things that have not been processed or eliminated properly. The task is not complete. There is unfinished business. A weakness in the vyana can cause you to fixate on some experience, rehashing the same thoughts. Taking in new things, of course, inspiration will help, prana, but often it is a matter of expanding the box of the fixation. When you stop fixating, the answer comes. One way is to take the time to see if the fixation is like others that you have experienced before, or if it reminds you of something. I've talked with a number of people who have had out-of-body experiences that profoundly affected them. One went out of body while driving and came back with a very different view of the world because they watched themselves not only driving the car, but also hearing themselves having a conversation, all the while floating above. Who was driving? Who was talking? This was a very profound experience for them. But another person went out of body on the operating table, saw things going on, and overheard the emergency team, but their reaction was, "So what? When we die, we go out of body." There was nothing profound in it. It had no implications. Always look at fear. Some people have occult and spiritual experiences and are profoundly changed, but others are not. The experience gets lost. Sometimes the experience is held as trauma and suffering. I knew of a woman who, as a kid, experienced another girl foresee her own death, and she told everyone, and then it happened, a car accident outside of her control. Even after 40 years, the woman had a hard time dealing with the memory, and she kept repeating the exact same phrase, "There are things in this world that no one can understand." True acceptance leads to insight. The locks strengthen the actions of these energies, and focusing on them or their actions in terms of our life experience will aid us in gaining equality. We can do more and handle more at a higher quality of consciousness. In the physical practice of yoga, these also come into play in postures and movements. For instance, if you press your hands together, this stimulates the apana. You can feel the base of the spine. So doing a salutation where you complete this action contributes to the energetic effect. Certain head positions can affect the attitude of surrender and the udana. The heart positions and postures can give strength to openness. You can also think of extremes, as fear can cause you to defecate and restrict breathing. The prana is disrupted. I once saw a daughter talk to her father about confronting someone and stopping them from bullying, and then promptly get criticized for it by the father. He didn't actually listen to the story. Based on his response, he didn't get what was happening to her. He had told many stories about doing the same thing at work. The daughter was confused as she did something good, but it was being criticized. She immediately developed a runny nose. For my part, I felt the energy disruption in her and was able to remove her symptoms by getting her to breathe deeply and lightly contracting the anus, just enough to close it during the inhale. This rebalanced the energy. The symptoms abated. When disrupted, the prana tends to separate, and the emotions follow. I was very appreciative, as this was very helpful for me in learning. Openness and receptivity need to be supported by other energies. You want to be able to handle what you are open to and be able to digest it. Your energies will get good at processing certain things, just as your physical body adapts its chemistry to be able to get the most nutrition out of foods. So you will be more open to some things rather than others. Udana and maturation. Getting older and wiser is not a given. It happens when you are actually aiming to gain wisdom from experiences, but there are things that unfold as you age, not just puberty. I once heard someone say that they were getting a throwaway job. This struck me at the time. I get that it was in terms of an eventual career and a way of life. It was just a temp job. But there were many things I learned from temp jobs. I had one, for instance, as a clerk observing interactions with people, how I reacted, and this observing the energy was very useful. This was because I was focused on that. Each moment is an aspect of practice. In Part 7, we will look at the Kundalini energy. In Part 8, the inner being. If you get something out of this video, please hit the like and subscribe. Till next time.